You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith.
Welcome, Sprouts. Today is Friday, October 21st, in the 29th week in Ordinary Time.
Sprouts, Scott and Jeff here again from Catholic Concepts and all of your favorite brands. It's a little sad, Scott.
I'm really sad. I just got real bummed out because today's the last day.
It is the last day. It is Friday, and it's almost time for the weekend, and that's exciting. But today's our last day. I could talk for a month about our favorite saint, Saint Therese of Lisieux, but today's the last day, so let's make it a good one.
The little flower.
Little flower.
What a good day to talk about the little flower.
It is.
What are we talking about today, Jeff?
So, Saint Therese, there are two things that I wanted to talk about on this last day, and
What's
so
number one?
We're going to cram them in together. First was her promise to the world about her shower of roses. So when Saint Therese was ill at the end of her life, she said, "After my death, I will let fall a shower of roses. I will spend my heaven doing good upon earth. I will raise up a mighty host of little saints like our little Sprouts. And my mission is to make God loved." So Saint Therese, before she passed away, before she knew she was going to become a saint, had such a devotion of service to the world that she said, "I will, even in my time in heaven, dedicate my life to making sure that people know they are loved by God on earth." And what an amazing thing. And since then, Scott, unbelievable. Literally just raining roses all the time. I started to look up what are some great examples of this. I probably found 100 examples of people who have prayed to Saint Therese.
Yeah.
Whether that is for the healing of children who have been sick, and they've prayed to Saint Therese and seen that showering of roses. And even at times, roses and rose petals appear places representing that shower of roses. I've read about people who have prayed for their families to be brought back together and to be reunited, for the vocation of marriage, and even more so for the vocations of the priesthood and religious life. So many people who have struggled and not known if they were what they were being called to and what God was calling them to. And they prayed to Saint Therese, and Saint Therese answered their questions.
Love it.
And answered their prayers. I even recently met a beautiful young missionary, a friend of ours, Trinity Went.
Oh, yeah.
Shared the story of her mission time with Net Ministries. And while she planned on not doing a second year, she prayed to Saint Therese, asking Saint Therese to tell her she didn't have to do it. Saint Therese had a different plan. So we pray in our family every day for Trinity and her time with Net Ministries this year.
Saint Therese, the little way. It could be so many different ways that we can take this, but it doesn't really matter how big the issue is, what it might be, what you're up against, what you're facing. All you have to do is simply turn to God and throw yourself into his arms and ask for help. And Saint Therese knows that. She knows that feeling. She's been there. She's walked our feet. She's a modern saint. And all we have to do is little by little put our trust and confidence in God that he will take care of us, and the little way will walk us closer into his loving arms.
Yeah, she was the little flower, but she described the way that she lived her life as the little way. Tiny little steps, tiny little things that we do to turn our hearts to God. God's not asking for a lot. He's not asking for everything. He's just asking for our love.
All right, Jeff, it's time for the challenge. What should be the challenge today?
You know, we're at the end of our week. Everybody's had a long week. We've gotten to learn amazing things about Saint Therese this week. I think this Friday, as our challenge for this weekend, let's get your family together and let's see what intentions, what are those things, the little things and the big things that we want to offer up to Saint Therese. What do we want to ask for her shower of roses upon in our family this week? And just offer those intentions to Saint Therese and ask for her to just continue to guide us to God's love.
Love it.
That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God created you to be.
All right, parents, we've talked to you this week about all of Catholic Concepts brands. Lots of ways you can go online and frankly spend your money and help support us and buy some really cool Catholic products. But today we want to talk about Scott and I's passion project.
Oh, yeah.
Which is our podcast, All Set for Sunday. All Set for Sunday is a podcast for busy and distracted Catholics to be a little more prepared for Sunday Mass. Every week, we review the readings for the Sunday Mass, and we have a guest priest on to kind of talk to them about what they might be preaching about. Why do we do this, Scott?
So here's my dream scenario. I walk into a church with no other distractions. I sit up in the very first pew, able to engage in everything. When it comes time for the homily, even if I have a question, maybe I could just raise my hand and ask the priest, hey, what do you mean by that? This is the way it affects my life. What do you think? And that's never the case, or never would be. It's probably disrespectful to do it during the Mass. But we developed a podcast where we can do just that. We can interview a priest about just kind of the general themes and topics of what he plans to preach about that weekend and poke holes in it.
And that way, if you're distracted by the shiny objects or the music or your sprouts are bouncing all over the place, you have an opportunity to really focus and listen in to check out our podcast, listen. And even if you don't hear it all, you can catch some key pieces that really make you able to better engage in the Mass.
Yep. I just had my first Mass that I didn't have to leave with my little tot for quite some time. So I know what it's like to have little sprouts. I understand it. And this podcast helps me just be a little bit more prepared. Where do we find the podcast, Jeff?
You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts or allsetforsunday.com.
This show is a production of the Spoke Street Media Podcast Network. For more great podcasts, visit spokestreet.com.